Mike, I didn't want to say this, but you need to hear it from me before the world does. Michael Jordan held the phone tighter, his knuckles whitening. The voice on the other end was familiar, deep, slow, commanding, but this wasn't Shaq's usual tone. There was no joke, no laughter, no friendly trash talk. This was different. "What are you talking about, Shaq?" Michael asked, his voice steady but colder now. "What do I need to hear?" There was a long pause. Shaq exhaled heavily, and for a second, Michael thought the line had gone dead. Then, in a tone filled with guilt, Shaq whispered, "Something I should have told you years ago about your father." Time stopped. Michael's chest tightened, his breath shallow. He walked across the room, phone to his ear, pacing like a storm was building inside him. "My father," he repeated, slower this time. "What the hell do you mean?" Shaq didn't answer right away. Just a sigh, then the sound of him swallowing hard. "I can't say it like this," Shaq finally said. "Not over the phone. But you deserve to know before anyone else says it in public." "Shaq," Michael's voice cracked. Not from fear, but from something deeper, something buried. "Don't play with me. If you know something, you say it now." But Shaq didn't. Instead, he said, "I'm sorry, Mike. I thought I was protecting you. But maybe I was protecting myself." And with that click, the line went dead. Michael stared at the screen, blinking. His hand dropped slowly, phone dangling by his side. For a man who had faced every pressure, every headline, every war on the court, this silence felt heavier than all of it. What could Shaq possibly know about James Jordan that Michael didn't? What was going public? Why now? His mind raced. He remembered Shaq during the '96 All-Star Weekend. How they laughed, how they talked late one night about pain, family, and loss. Could he have known something then? Michael grabbed his phone again, tried calling back. Straight to voicemail. "Damn it, Shaq," he muttered, his voice trembling, his control slipping. He tried again. Same result. And for the first time in a long time, the man who never flinched under pressure felt powerless. He walked to the window, the lights of the city glowing below him. But nothing felt real. His reflection stared back, older, wiser, but shaken. His father was the reason he left basketball in '93, the reason he returned, the reason behind the man he became. And now, someone, Shaq of all people, was saying there was more to the story. His heartbeat echoed louder than the silence in the room. He didn't want to go back to that pain. But now he had no choice. Michael Jordan had faced every enemy on the court. But this time, the battle was with the past, his own. And it had just begun. Michael didn't sleep that night. He just sat there, phone in hand, mind replaying every word from Shaq's call like a broken record. "Something I should have told you years ago about your father." The sentence felt like a nail slowly driven into his chest. Why now? Why him? By morning, his eyes were bloodshot, but his focus was sharp. He opened his contacts list and started calling. First was Curtis Polk, his longtime business advisor. "Curtis, has anything come up? Media stories? Leaks?" Curtis paused. "No, not that I know of." "Why? What's going on?" Michael hesitated. "I got a call. From Shaq. He said something is about to come out, something about my father." Curtis went silent. "You think he's messing with you?" Michael's voice hardened. He wasn't joking. Not this time. One by one, Michael called old teammates, agents, even reporters he used to trust. Nobody knew anything. Or at least, they acted like they didn't. He could hear it in their voices, the hesitation, the careful pauses. Someone was hiding something. He tried Shaq again. Voicemail. Again and again. It didn't make sense. Michael finally dropped his phone on the kitchen counter and sat down. He stared at nothing, just breathing. Then something clicked. He remembered Shaq once left him a voice message months ago, one he never listened to. It was during the off-season. Michael had been too busy, too tired. He opened his voice memos, and there it was, Shaq March. He pressed play. "Yo, Mike, look, man, I know I should have said this earlier. It's about that guy from All-Star Weekend. '96, he said something weird. I didn't believe him then, but I checked later, and..." The message ended. Cut off. Michael stared at the screen. There was no second part, no follow-up, just that half-broken voice from the past, haunting him now like a shadow. Why '96? Why All-Star Weekend? The name of that year alone brought back too much. His comeback season, the media circus, and the lingering ache of his father's death. And then a deeper thought crept in, one he had never voiced, not even to himself. What if I didn't know everything? What if what I believed was only part of the truth? He opened his laptop and searched old files, news reports, FBI records, even conspiracy forums he once mocked. The same patterns, the same silence. Then, he called one person he hadn't spoken to about this in years, his mother. "Ma, did Dad ever say anything strange before he left for Wilmington that day?" There was a long pause on the line. Her voice was soft but shaky. He said, "If anything happens to me, tell Mike it was never his fault." Michael froze. "What do you mean, never my fault?" he asked, his voice trembling. But she didn't answer right away. Instead, she said something that shattered his world. Because there were things going on, Michael, things you didn't know. Things he kept from you. Michael closed his eyes. His world wasn't just cracking, it was collapsing. And the truth was no longer a mystery. It was a storm coming straight for him. Michael stood in the hallway, phone still pressed to his ear, but the line had gone quiet. His mother's words echoed in his mind like a scream he couldn't silence. There were things going on, Michael, things he kept from you. He sat down slowly, like his legs had given out. This wasn't just about grief anymore. This was about betrayal, silence, and something darker beneath the surface. His voice was low but firm. "Mom, what things?" She hesitated. He didn't want to involve you. You had just won your third title. You were on top of the world. He said, "It wasn't your burden." Michael's breath caught in his throat. "Wasn't your burden?" "What wasn't?" he asked again. "Tell me the truth." Her voice cracked. He got into something with money. A man he trusted. It started small, but it spiraled fast. He thought he could fix it before it reached you. But the night he disappeared, he told me he was being followed. Michael blinked. "Followed? Why didn't anyone tell me?" "He begged me not to. Said if anything happened, he didn't want it to destroy you." Michael stood up, pacing, emotions boiling beneath his calm surface. "I could have protected him. I would have protected him." A pause. Then she said, "He believed you already had too much weight on your shoulders." Michael ended the call gently. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. But his heart was breaking. And then, as if fate itself was listening, his phone lit up. "Shaq." Michael answered before the first ring finished. "Talk," he snapped. Shaq's voice was heavy. "I didn't hang up on you to be rude. I hung up because I wasn't sure if I had the right to say it." Michael's silence spoke louder than words. Shaq continued, "Back in '96, a guy pulled me aside. Said James Jordan's death wasn't random. He said your father was being watched for months. Said a name I never forgot, Lorenzo Banks." Michael's heart dropped. He knew that name. He remembered seeing it once, on a letter his father left behind. Never opened, tucked in an old jacket. Who the hell was Lorenzo Banks? Michael whispered. "A loan shark. Connected. Dirty money. East Coast. Your dad was trying to help someone, maybe trying to cover for them. But things went sideways." Michael closed his eyes. His father, always trying to fix things, always taking care of people, even if it meant hiding danger from his own son. Shaq said quietly, "I didn't believe it back then. I thought it was just noise. But last week, that same name came up in an interview I did with a retired cop. He said James Jordan's file was incomplete, sealed by someone high up." Michael sat in silence. A hurricane of emotions tearing through him. Love, guilt, anger, heartbreak. For so many years, he thought his father's death was a senseless tragedy. But now, it was a story built on secrets, silence, and sacrifice. And he was finally holding the pieces. Michael sat alone in his study, lights off, staring at the letter he had never opened. Lorenzo Banks. That name was now carved into his mind like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. His father's voice, his mother's silence, Shaq's guilt. All of it swirled in his chest like a storm ready to tear him apart. He finally unfolded the letter. His hands trembled. "If anything ever happens to me, just know it was my choice. I made mistakes, Mike, but I never stopped being proud of you." Michael's lips parted, but no sound came out. His father knew. He knew he was walking into something dangerous, and he chose not to tell his own son, to protect him. At what cost? Michael pushed back from the desk, breathing hard. His fists clenched. The room felt too small, the walls too tight, like they were closing in. He punched the wall. Hard. Then again. And again. Blood trickled down his knuckles. But he didn't stop until his breath came out in gasps and his knees hit the floor. This wasn't just grief anymore. This was fury wrapped in heartbreak. He had lived with a version of the truth for decades. But it was a lie. A well-constructed one. One that let him sleep at night, telling himself his father was in the wrong place at the wrong time. But now he knew better. The next morning, he flew out to Wilmington. Alone. No cameras. No press. No entourage. He didn't want noise. He wanted answers. He visited the old garage where his father used to work on cars. It was quiet, untouched by time. On the wall hung an old photograph of the two of them. Michael, around 13, grease on his face, holding a wrench. His father's arm rested proudly on his shoulder. Michael stared at it, his eyes wet. "Why didn't you tell me?" he whispered to the photo. "Why did you walk into that alone?" He turned around when he heard a soft voice behind him. "You must be Michael." An older man stepped forward, worn but alert. "Name's Reggie. I used to work with your dad." Michael nodded, tense. Did he ever mention a man named Lorenzo Banks? Reggie's face hardened instantly. He glanced away, then back. "I told him to stay away from that man. But James, your father, he thought he could fix everything. That's just who he was." Michael's voice shook. "What did Banks want?" "Leverage. And your dad had it. He was connected to someone Banks couldn't touch. But your father refused to play the game." Michael lowered his head. His father didn't just die. He was targeted because he stood up to something bigger. The breaking point wasn't in what Michael discovered. It was in what it cost. All the trophies, the rings, the glory, they felt weightless now. Because the man who raised him had carried the real burden in silence. And now, Michael was ready to carry it forward. But not quietly. Michael stood at the airport window, watching the planes take off and land, each flight a reminder of how fast life could change and how quickly people disappear. The visit to Wilmington had changed something in him. No longer was he haunted by unanswered questions. Now he was haunted by the answers. The truth wasn't just painful, it was clarifying. His father hadn't died in confusion or weakness. He died protecting something. Protecting him. And that changed everything. He boarded the flight back to Chicago, but his mind wasn't on basketball. It wasn't on headlines or documentaries or GOAT debates. It was on healing. Not for himself, for the people left behind. The moment he landed, Michael didn't go home. He drove straight to a small house just outside the city, a place he hadn't visited in over a decade. He knocked. The door opened slowly. Dolores Jordan stared at her son, her eyes wide. "Michael." He nodded. "We need to talk. About everything." She stepped aside without a word. Inside, silence fell between them like a blanket. Then Michael reached into his jacket and pulled out the letter, creased, worn, stained with old tears. "He left it for me," he said quietly, "but I never opened it. Until now." Dolores sat down slowly, her eyes fixed on the paper like it held a ghost. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she whispered. "Keeping you focused. Keeping you safe." Michael sat across from her. "I know, and I'm not angry anymore. I just wish I could have told him that I wasn't a kid anymore. That I could have handled the truth." She nodded slowly. "We all wish we had said more when we had the chance." For the first time in years, the two sat together, not as a grieving mother and son, but as two people finally ready to understand the weight they'd both carried in silence. Michael looked at her and said, "I want to speak up about what really happened, not to bring shame, but to bring peace, to give Dad the honor he deserves." Dolores blinked. "You'd really tell the world?" "I have to," he said, "because silence didn't protect him, and it won't protect others either." Later that week, Michael scheduled an interview. Not a flashy press tour, not a sports network, just one camera, one chair, one story. His story. He spoke about his father, not just as the man who raised the greatest basketball player of all time, but as a protector, a man who sacrificed everything for those he loved. By the time the video aired, millions were watching. But Michael didn't care about the numbers. What mattered was truth. What mattered was peace. And that night, alone in his house, Michael sat under the glow of a single lamp, staring at his father's picture. "We're not broken anymore, Dad," he whispered. "We're whole. Because I finally heard you." And somewhere deep in the silence, it felt like James Jordan had finally come home.